ask all of our great participants that before you speak for the first time, if you could kindly remind the rest of the group who you are and your background. So there's going to be an informal discussion about leadership, but leadership for women in particular. And I'm just going to ask questions, engage with them. If you have any questions, maybe at the end we can address them. So please don't be shy. So my first question actually to all of you individually is, I believe that a big component of leadership has to do with your identity, right? Do you see yourself as a leader, and do other people see you as a leader, right? So my question to you is how you define your identity, right? What story do you tell to yourself? How do you project an image to others about you being an actual leader? Right? I guess we can start in this order.
I think that's a very interesting question. And if I have to talk about my identity, then I have to go back into my childhood, like it will be for each one of us. So I think I was very fortunate to be born in a household where my parents referred to me as their firstborn and not as a daughter. I then went to a business school which had 50% women, and 70% of the top 10 in the class were women, things like that. And so all my life, I took it for granted that I could do well at my job, and that was that. So that's how I've seen it. It's only lately, when I think I've broken into leadership spaces, that I've seen a lot of surprises. Because what I see versus what people might perceive of me may be a little different. So what I see of myself is someone who has a lot of capability, and I am a specialist. I know my stuff. I know that in my company of 14,000 people, there are spaces that I know better than anybody else. I know that for sure. But the interesting thing is how I might be perceived as younger or more junior or less competent in some situations. So one part of it is my identity. The other part of it is how do I deal with how people respond to me, and how do I choose to respond in these situations.
Thank you. And if you can remind the audience about your company or your position.
Thanks for the reminder. My name is Sohini and I work for Tata Electronics.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Shalini Biswas. I'm the Managing Director of Easy Mode Stationery Private Limited. It's a company which manufactures stationery, packaging, and I want to specially mention that my team comprises of only men. And I just have one lady who works with me because of the industry, even though I have tried to encourage a lot of ladies. Because it is not a very friendly industry in the sense because the working hours and the kind of work we do, I have not been able to encourage ladies to come and join my work. Coming back to your question, Juan, leadership for me is not being single-handedly taking all the credits. Leadership is taking everybody, including everybody in your team, and leading them to success and making each one recognize their strengths and how each one incorporates and brings to the table what the company or the organization's success comes about. So being a leader, I give a lot of credit to my team, and I'm very thankful to have a team of men who are very supportive and who encourage. When we were talking about in our previous sessions, we were talking about how bringing in men and making women and making it giving more importance and allowing women to come. I think in society, inclusion, where bringing the strengths of men and women together, I think it's a more wholesome and adds strength to any organization. And as for recognizing women's strength, it is your personal way of looking at yourself rather than looking at your weaknesses. I feel that adds strength, and makes one a better leader. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm going to answer your second question first. You know, sometimes I believe, firstly, yes, I think I'm a leader.
Rita, sorry, can you kindly remind the audience your name and
I know, I said I'll do the second question first. After that I will do
the surprise
first.
element.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So yes. And I think I'm thankful with the level of low depth of intelligence that I have and the brain. But if I look at my parents, I'm glad I'm where I am. I'm like so lucky that I can't amazingly believe. I also think that for a woman, you don't necessarily have to flaunt who you are. We are naturally quite, ease into it. So you don't have to shout out, I'm so and so, so and so. Behind each one of us is a powerhouse of, talent and experience. But we don't necessarily kind of show it on our kind of label. So yes, I believe that yes. I'm Preeta, and my life is into three parts. I have spent about 18 years in the corporate sector, worked in India and abroad, and then in the development sector for about, 14, 15 years. Also, I'm an independent director of a company, listed company, also work with policy, etc. So difficult, depending on who I'm meeting, I say, what am I doing? Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. I am Sukanya Chatterjee. Currently, I am the Director of Programs for India Humanity Foundation and an HR consultant for Rotary India Literacy Mission. And prior to that, I was the Deputy Director for the George Telegraph Training Institute. For me, women in leadership, I believe, of course, yes, I'm into the leadership role. And I believe it's what one should walk the talk. So that is how I look into as a leadership role, and I always want that instead of today. It's a wonderful privilege, and I am thankful to Anna ma'am for this wonderful program. We have been having a wonderful session since morning, but I would just like to say that we are, as a women, we should make the table long for other women to participate and promote them rather than, this is one of an event, but we should have that mindset as well to promote all the women and make the table, the boardroom better and more long. Thank you.
Thank you. So Sukanya and Shohini both have our backgrounds, that's correct? So from a corporate standpoint, what would be some of the best practices or ideas that could be implemented to actually scale up and increase the skill set of different women at different levels of the workforce?
So the way I look at it, there are a few elements to look at. First of all, there is competence. I think today's day and age, there isn't much to prove that when you have a woman at a senior level, she's come there because she's competent. I don't think that's where the debate is. I think if an organization had to enable more women to break into and stay in the leadership levels, there's work to be done in a few other areas. One is the culture and the way people communicate. I think that's one significant area. Another area to do work is in connections. For example, all the work on the conversation about networking and connections and who we knew and who we can seek help from, etc. And the third one is confidence. And by confidence, I don't mean the innate confidence that women have, but really everything else that goes around it. Women might be very capable. They might be able to. They might be the right person for the job. But I've just seen so many more women experiencing the imposter syndrome than many others. So how do you kind of reinforce messages around, both for the women and for the ecosystem? I mentioned the culture bit. I think a lot in how people perceive leadership lies in how communication happens, in how people talk about their achievements, their own work, and how they, as leaders, they take charge of the situation and bring people along. And I think there are fundamental differences in the manner in which people are expected to be leader-like and these perspectives may be different for men and women. So for organizations to be very conscious about that and say that when a woman says we, she's really putting forth her work and not necessarily speaking on behalf of a group, and being sensitive to those gender nuances. Yeah, I think those are a few things. Yes.
Anything to add from your end?
I think she has told the absolutely right thing, and I would say that even for male also, I mean, since we are talking about women, and I'm sure it's the male members, I would like to say that they should also support and promote the women to this leadership role.
Which leads me to my next question, actually directed at Shalini, but anyone can take a stab at it. You mentioned how you lead a team of all male, right? So in practical terms, what do men, not only the men in the room, but the 5 men in the room, but society at large, what do men need to hear and what do men need to know in order to support you and women leaders better, and in order for us to understand your leadership styles and your approaches better, not in a combative way, not feeling like you're trying to overpower men, but in a very reasonable, human, collegiate way? What are some of the things that you've experienced and the message you have for my male brethren here in the room?
So coming to answer your question, Juan, for me, I think usually when women hold positions, leadership positions or positions of power, initially she is doubted upon. Like, is she capable? But when a man walks in and takes his seat or his chair, it is always thought, or it's taken for granted, oh, he's the boss. It's very easily accepted. But a woman always has to prove the position. I was no exception. When I came and started this company, I could see doubt in each team member's eye that will ma'am be able to lead us to success. So I feel it is always you proving your capacities as a leader and your capability to lead the team to success will answer it all, and then there's no doubt. So it is all a question of time, where you take time in earning the belief of your team members that you're capable, and you show your worth and your grit, go through the whole process. But I always feel that a woman has to work double time to prove her worth and show that she is capable, and that has been my experience. I think a little of it is changing because of us women having already proved our position and shown that we are capable and we have it in us to handle any leadership role or head any organization or be a part of any board. Since we have proved that, there is a significant change or mindset change in the way things are looked at now, but yet the process is still on.
Does anyone else want to add anything?
I think, what male colleagues or male members need to do is to suspend disbelief, or that the woman can't do it. Be a little more accepting. So usually their judgment is like Shalini mentioned, is that, oh, woman, I have also seen it in meetings, if there is even if it's a junior male colleague, the opposite side is thinking, oh, that must be the boss, and like she's tagged along kind of with him. So I think you need to suspend disbelief, hear out with an open mindset, and then kind of figure out, is she capable or not capable. I think that's what men need to do, whether it's men colleagues, whether it is suppliers, bankers, investors, whatever on the other side. I think that's important.
I would like to add something to this. I feel, what Shalini said is absolutely right, but at the same time, it gives female the leverage because every day in and out, female has to prove her worth and her position. So that gives her an edge to be on the top at every moment, at every sphere of his life. So that's what my take.
Thank you. Well, all of you are certainly very accomplished in your respective fields. And people in the audience can see your bios and they can see how far you have made it, but they don't really know some of the challenges that you have faced in your path to becoming a leader. So if I may ask each and all of you, if you can talk a bit more about the path that took you from not knowing how to be a leader or for facing these stereotypes and challenges. What did you learn and how did you eventually manage to become a leader? And now that you're in that position, what advice do you have for others who might be going through similar paths?
I'll share a little story again. Like this example that you quoted of getting into a meeting with a junior male colleague and people assuming that you're the junior person. I think all of us have been there at some point. So I was in a conversation with a very senior leader of my company, and we were talking about women, confidence, this, that, and he says, "No, I don't mean girls like Sohini." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm 45. I don't know whether I should take that as a compliment or otherwise. Sometimes it feels nice to be referred to as a girl, but all of us, I don't know how many men want to be referred to as a boy, right? So that was one experience. And shortly in the heat of that, I was interviewing people. I was interviewing people from a very reputed business school, and I interviewed one girl and a boy, and I referred to them, young woman and a young man. And I wasn't impressed with this young woman. She didn't seem confident enough. This young man was very confident. He spoke about it at length about a project he's done. He seemed like God's gift to mankind, in that interview at least. And so he was on my short list. In the break, I reviewed my notes and I realized when I looked at their CVs again, they both worked on the same project on sustainability. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened? And here I am, so conscious about gender, and yet I assumed that this young man was more competent and had done more, and both of them had worked on the same project. So this, I spoke about my gender-neutral upbringing, but this realization that no, it doesn't matter. At some point, your gender does play out. And so how are you going to put your gender vis-a-vis your self-conception and identity as a leader? I decided that I'm going to flaunt my grays. So I flaunt my grays on my hair. I'll flaunt my gray cells. I'll talk about what I know. I'll talk about what I do. And I will give a damn. If I have a point of view, I will be heard. So this was something I told myself. Another thing that I realized was key to becoming a leader is when you are a manager and when you're doing stuff or you're an individual contributor in the early part of your career, you get success because you get stuff done. So you're in charge. When you're a leader, like what Shalini was talking about is, you let go. So this transition I discovered through my own journey was such a difficult one because as a woman, I had gotten whatever acceptance, credibility because I took charge and now I needed to let go of. And I've seen, it's only when I experienced it myself that I realized that that's a struggle that a lot of women face because they're in the nitty-gritties. So yeah, those were a couple of things that I told myself that I'll be myself unapologetically and it's okay, I'll let go. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't.
It's working right now, so thank you.
So, I started my professional journey after I finished my family responsibilities. I was married for good 26 years. I have 2 lovely kids. And then my marriage broke. So I had people coming up to me and saying, "I'm so sorry." So initially, when that hit me, I had a few months of transition time till I realized my strengths. Now I can stand here and say that was probably the best thing that could happen to me, for me to recognize what I didn't realize about myself my strengths and my capabilities. I had ladies come to me and say, I'm sorry Shalini, I will not be able to mix with you from henceforth because you're not with your husband anymore. And it will be like, a bad reputation for me because you're single. So that was very hurtful for me at that time. I'm very happy to see all of them want to be with me, constantly invite me, could you come and meet us? And I have come to a phase where I feel I have been able to reach a place where I can understand where they come from because they are dependent on their husbands. So true women's strength only comes from when you are financially independent, you are earning your own money, you will automatically have a voice there. Otherwise, you are dependent on someone else who's paying for you and who is funding for you, and that strength will never come to you till you earn your own money, and that is something I have learned when I was dependent on my family. And then when I started earning my money, I had recognized and realized I have a voice, and I'm proud of that. It has been a journey of learning. I think there's no harm in making mistakes, and over mistakes you learn the lessons that you learn. You can learn with no course, and no course can give you that learning that you can learn when you make a mistake. And for me, the journey of being a manufacturer in stationery, where now I'm a key player in the east of India, I manufacture stationery. COVID was a time when many businesses shut down for the markets being closed. I'm proud to say that is when my new business of packaging started. So for me, COVID was very good. My new business, which is we registered the company, and it's called Nuvo Solutions. We cater to aviation industry, tea industry, and a lot of other industries. And so the journey of mine has been one of a lot of learning, lot of having support and not having support, recognizing oneself. I would also like to mention when Kimberly was mentioning of her experiences, I think women bring a lot of EQ. IQ we all have, but EQ is an additional thing that we add, and I think that is very necessary to be real. And as a leader, you must not lose your true self and the emotions and emoting and understanding and bringing everybody together, then to wipe out that emotional quotient and be very stoned. And I think leadership is all about having those emotions as
well. My journey started, as a fresher when I joined Tata Sky. So there's the HR who took my interview. I am basically from a suburb. So when the question which was asked in the board was, are you flexible to work long hours? So that's the first thing for women, that it is a taboo that women can't extend, they are not very flexible, they cannot work long hours. So from there, so I said yes, not a problem. So from there the journey started, and then definitely I had grown in that organization, and then way back to, if I talk about my career in George Telegraph, so I was probably the youngest administrator. So, and the average age was 40-45 who used to report to me. So there was a huge, and 80%, 85 to 90% people were male. And for them, accepting a boss as a woman was a greatest thing. So from there, in every step, I had to prove myself, and I had to bring an inclusive environment. I had to create that, because there was a lot of gender problems, biasness was there. which is very common actually. So from there, and of course, people will only accept you when you prove yourself that you are a little bit superior to them in terms of knowledge, in terms of your team handling, in terms of your confidence and everything. So then, whenever you're put into any strategic decision also, whenever you're in the board, you have, being a woman, you always have to put more focus on facts and figures to substantiate whatever you're saying. So that's how it was, but overall, definitely it was a wonderful learning experience, and I mean the directors, the owners who were in the organization, they had helped me a lot, and it was a wonderful learning session. So it's excellent. So that's how it is, and now it is. I am where I am today in front of so many people. Thank you.
So I think there is a time in every woman's life that in a professional career somewhere the personal there is a kind of a challenge. So my story is also similar to Shalini's, but far more interesting. I shall share some other time. But I was heading HR for a very large chain of multinational hotel chain, and then a personal something happened. But the interesting thing is, one is the learning from there, which I think each one of us recognize at different points of time. To me, when I was first starting my career, the word leader was somebody who's like a leader. You need 20, 25 years to become a leader. And those leadership lessons were meant for leaders. It was one such, and I consider that man my mentor, Anil Sachdev, and he spoke about personal leadership. And that was the first time I heard the word personal leadership. I'm not a leader, how can I have personal leadership? But that experience when I was, that a personal tragedy, I won't say a tragedy, it's the word that other people use, like Shalini was mentioning. But that personal, let's say, experience, I said, to hell with it. Let me do what I kind of want to do and not kind of only go on the professional whatever path. So I decided to open a company. And this company, I wanted to kind of open a company for providing hobbies to adults. There are, from an investor pitch deck or whatever, I didn't even know. I thought nobody has done this. I did whatever research. And my need was like, there's no company that provides hobby sessions for adults. Like when you're young, you're in school and college, you're doing painting, dancing, tennis, whatever. But as an adult, if I want to learn golf, or if I want to kind of learn Indian classical music, etc., just learn. I mean, I'm not going to be putting a stage show. There's nothing. But I didn't have any clue about how to go about it. It ran like a hobby. But it taught me several things about taking risk, about taking a chance, etc. So it also the personal thing that I think women need to do is to take a risk, to take a chance, believe in yourself. So next time when I put corporate all together, there was nobody willing to give me a chance in the development sector. So okay, if I take up an HR job, I had been there and I didn't want to take up a corporate job anymore. So I joined, it was only one company, and that's a well-known organization in the infrastructure space, Feedback. Feedback was getting into resettlement and rehabilitation at that point of time. Nobody in the country knew how that happens. This is ultimately led to Shingur and whatever, but at that point of time. And so it allowed me to get into a different field, learn so much about resettlement and rehabilitation that I can talk about how land acquisition happens and how do you do all of that. So that's the second thing that I think women need to do, is to constantly be also aware and open to new learnings and new experiences and new kind of knowledge. So I think these two really kind of helped me.
Thank you. Sukanya mentioned that she got that perennial question, are you willing to work long hours? So from both the HR perspective, but from a broader perspective, how can women self-advocate a bit more when it comes to negotiating salaries, drawing boundaries between professional life and personal life and other boundaries that shouldn't be crossed. What tips do you have for other women who will be in your shoes or have been in your shoes to kind of have the capacity to have these discussions with their mostly male employers?
Well, women by birth is, I mean, the way they have been born and brought up, they make a very good balance. Okay, so being as a homemaker or be in the professional world, women knows how to make a balance. So even if your question was, once again,
How to so advocate for your boundaries and for higher salaries and being more equal to your male counterparts?
Talking about the salary will obviously come with your experience, with your knowledge, and how you present yourself and how you work. So that depends your salary. And when you talk about the boundaries, I will say there is no limit for where a woman can grow. So that's how I look into it.
So I want to, I'm just thinking, I didn't want to be the first one taking the mic because when you asked the salary question, I was like, I have done this very badly myself. Not once, multiple times. So I know this is something that I do badly. Now, the last time I had a conversation, I asked two male friends whom I trust, who I know have my interest in mind to advise me before a salary conversation. So can't say I have a good solution, but yeah, you can seek advice and somebody will give you some sane advice. One friend told me, whatever you say, just add 5% on top of it from my side. So I thought, okay, that sounded like good advice. The other piece about boundaries, I think this is actually a gender neutral question if you ask me. At the end of the day, what is important to you as an individual? I think that's what matters. What makes you happy? What are the 3-4 things that are core to your being? I think just being clear about it in your own mind and being honest to yourself, I think that's the first step.
Well, I'll share this experience of mine with you is during COVID when we started our packaging unit. What happened was all the markets were shut and there was no movement in the market, and the stationery, there was not any revenue being generated because all schools, markets, everything was shut. So initially we thought it would be 2 weeks and COVID would be over and we will start business again. 2 weeks went, nothing happened. 1 month went, nothing happened. Then I called my team. I had a video chat with them and I said, okay, what do we do? So they said, ma'am, you decide, what do we need to do? So we had raw material, we needed paper and board, we had all of that. I said, okay, now since everybody needs packaging, how about we try our hand in packaging? We took special permission to move about and we started our packaging unit. Since then, a section of my team, they come on Monday morning. It's like a boarding now. My office stays open the whole week. They stay in office, some of them who would travel a distance, and they go back on Saturday evening to come back again on Monday morning. So it is, when you say boundaries, it is, I think, how you build the relationship, the respect, the trust. It's a give and take. They feel so much at home, and when you're working, if you take it as your own, it is, if you're working and if you're pressurized that this is like a job, I must do it. The outcome, and when you love what you're doing and you're passionate about what you're doing, and it's like that freedom of taking decisions and they feel valued, I think the whole outcome and the whole boundary aspect changes. And I think I've been able to achieve that, and I feel happy about that.
All right, and we have, in the interest of time, one more question. If you could answer as shortly as possible, and mostly to the benefit of our American colleagues here in the room and online. So South Asia has actually had a long tradition of women leadership in the past. Strong queens, Bangladesh has a female prime minister. India had one in the 80s, way before than in many, many Western countries. So what are some of the elements of South Asian culture from Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, etc., that you think actually help women become good leaders and are traits that could be perhaps emulated or replicated in different parts of the world?
Can I start?
Please.
I think women have all the degrees that one needs. If you go back to our mothers, grandmothers, if the salaries were less or the earning was less, they would do good financial management and the whole house would run with that amount of money. As for HR qualities, a woman has that. Bring everybody together. You know, when there were joint families, everybody would come together and there was no problem with anybody. They would make sure everybody comes together and there was bonding among the joint families. So I think a woman is born blessed with all the qualities that are needed for one to be a leader. It is just the time one recognizes that it is within and the leaders meet.
Any last takers? We have like 20 seconds left.
Okay, so I'll just quickly say.
You can speak on behalf of the entire subcontinent.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm talking about a situation many years back. I was at an interview at that particular time. Golda Meir was in Israel. Srimabu Bandar Naike was in Sri Lanka. Indira Gandhi was here, and I'm forgetting somebody else. I think Bangladesh. 4 women, and I was asked at the panel interview that exactly the question that you're asking. Women are there. I think in all these, in the subcontinent, women are at a pedestal. They are there, either Devi or venerated, etc. I think the problem happened when women empowerment started. Then women became down to the whatever, and then then it's okay. So I think when they were there, then like Indira Gandhi used to be spoken about as the only man in her cabinet, because she's not a woman. She's like a more than a woman. She's a man. It's the equality now that you're finding it difficult. So I think you have to give that little bit of respect back. That she needs to be treated with care. That she needs to be respected both for as an individual and her rights, but also give her the opportunity. So.
Well, thank you. So if we can give our panelists a round of applause, please. Thank you so much for these insights, and I hope this is a conversation that we can continue to have.